Om Swastiastu. Hello, Mr. Harry and all of my friends. Thank you for the opportunity. So on this occasion, I would like to present my research proposal. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Anggita Kinanti, student ID number 201202102. On this presentation, I will present my research proposal. And my research topic is teacher perception on the influence of using flipped classroom model on teaching speaking skill in English learning for 12th grade student at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. Okay, on this presentation, I will elaborate my research proposal start from the chapter 1. There is background, problem identification, limitation, research question, objective, and also significant. And then in the chapter 2, I will elaborate the theoretical and empirical review. And then in chapter 3, I will elaborate the research methodology, start from research design, setting, population, and research sampling, variable data collection, such as data collection method and instrument. And the last is data analysis technique. Okay, for the first, I will elaborate the background. Okay, entering the 21st century, the world is rocked by the rapid of development of technology. So education is one of the most important sector. The rapid use of new technologies which encourage teachers to be more innovative. Okay, educators not only master new technology, but also must be able to use in pedagogical implication. So that means they must be able to implement in the world of education. To find out more about pedagogical implication or implementing ICT, so educators must change the learning system, start from teacher-centered learning to student-centered learning. So the learning process that use student-centered learning will provide free space for a student to control the learning process so that the learning process can run according to the wishes and needs of the student. This will open up great opportunity for students to develop creativity, independence, self-confidence, and etc. So educator can use learning innovation with ICT, but still focus on social environment in the real world. There is hybrid learning. So from the use of technology, then stop the traditional application with the application of hybrid learning. So it can be determined that one of learning models that can be used is flipped classroom. So that's make easier for students to learn because they can study outside the classroom or at home and then discuss in the class. In 21st century learning will also provide new challenge for students, especially in the era of COVID-19 pandemic. Indonesia has a major impact on the world of education, where the student must carry out the online learning process. So this will limit students in socializing directly. This will be a new challenge for them in socializing. So skills are very important to be honed in 21st century because living life requires skill, not just knowledge. One of the skills that can be developed is speaking skill, because good speaking skill will provide social, professional benefit. Because it will explore the influence of using flipped classroom model. So the role of the teacher is very important, because teacher will survive student in the learning process. So the perception of the teacher will be very meaningful. The perception of the teacher will provide a clear picture relate to the influence of using flipped classroom model, because the teacher is one who survived the student in the learning process. Okay, for the next is problem identification. I have read that Inyoman Swardana, Iwayan Redana, and Kompiang Slamet at 2021 conduct research at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar on the management of science learning based on the local culture. So from this study, it was found that the learning at SMA 1 Gianyar had used the flipped classroom model only in English, Indonesian language, and also science learning. But it was found there is no clear certainty regarding the effect of using flipped classroom in English lesson. There is no clarity on how the teacher perception on the influence of using flipped classroom model on student speaking, especially in English learning for 12th grade student at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. So what's new? Then it will be a new discovery if the research is carried out on the teacher perception on the influence of using the flipped classroom model on teaching speaking skill in English learning for 12th grade students at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. So this research will also provide the last information regarding the rule of implementing the flipped classroom model on student speaking skill. Okay, for the next is limitation of the study. From the problem described above, this research will focus on examining how the perception of English teacher in SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar of the influence of using flipped classroom model on student speaking skill in English learning grade 12 student in SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. So the subject of this study was an English teacher at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar who taught or had taught using the flipped classroom model. Okay, for the next is a statement of research question. Based on the background above, the research question that will be answered in this study is how do teachers of SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar perceive the use of flipped classroom in teaching speaking skill and English learning for 12th grade students? Okay, for the next is purpose of the study. Based on the formulation of the problem above, so the objective of this study is to identifying the teacher perception of the influence of using flipped classroom model on student speaking skill and English learning for 12th grade student at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. Whether the use of flipped classroom model have a good or bad influence of student speaking skills. All right, for the next is significance of the study. So the research results are expected to have benefit in terms of theoretical as well as practical. Okay, for the first is theoretical significance. So the results of this study are expected to enrich empirical references regarding how teacher perception on the influence of using flipped classroom model on student speaking skills in English learning. Is that learning model could give a good influence or not? It is also hoped that there will be aware of teacher in choosing the right learning model and aware of the importance of student English speaking skill. Okay, for the next is practical significance. There is for student, lecture, reader, and also from other researcher. For the first is for student. Students are expected to aware of the use of flipped classroom model and able to carry out the online learning activity with the flipped classroom and focus on the use of speaking skill. And then for lecture, the study will produce information and expected to be beneficial for lecture in build an understanding about teacher perception on the influence of using flipped classroom model. So it's hoped that the teacher can consider the implementation wisely. And then for reader, the results of this research are expected to be able to provide information for reader who need to explore the same topic. And then the last is for other researcher. This study is expected to be beneficial for other researcher to become a reference. This research results are expected to be able to support the literature review for the other researcher as well as to consider if there is future research on the same topic. Okay, we move to the chapter 2. It's about the theoretical review and empirical review. In theoretical review, I will elaborate the theory of perception and then teacher perception, speaking skill, and also flipped classroom. And in empirical review, I will elaborate the previous research that examine the same topic. Okay, for the first is theoretical review, the theory of perception. So in general, from the etymological point of view, the word perception originally came from the Latin, which meant to see something with common sense that is seen physically. From terminological perspective, the word perception can be interpreted as how we observe something with the sense we have. It can also be interpreted as a way of guessing something, the way we understand, interpret, or pay attention to something and tend to be quick. Perception is able to describe person process of selecting, organizing, and interpreting input information to make a comprehensive conception. So in this study, the object that will be give perception is the use of the classroom model. So perception is given on how the effect of the flipped classroom model on student speaking skill. Okay, the next is theory of teacher perception. So talking about perception in more detail, each individual is able to provide a perception of something. So one of them is teacher. The perception given by the teacher or teacher perception is a response in the form of an opinion which can channeling of thoughts about a thing. In using the flipped classroom model, the teacher can give two perception. There is positive perception and negative perception. So teacher perception is defined as a teacher beliefs held by the teacher personally about something such as subject matter, what is thoughts, role, responsibility of the teacher, students, classes, curriculum, and etc. The teacher perception will be a guide in implementation of the teaching practice because the perception comes from the experience and personality in the classroom. So the teacher perception in this study is to see how the influence of the use the flipped classroom model on students' speaking ability, whether the perception giving are positive or negative, and see how the influence of flipped classroom on students' speaking ability. Okay, for the third one is theory of speaking skills. So speaking skills is ability to pronounce sound, express thoughts or ideas verbally. So Oates and then Winker and Karaf say that speaking has a purpose. There is to inform, to entertain, to persuade, and etc. This study refers to speaking skill in English subject. So speaking skill is defined as the ability to say words or sentence to express thoughts, idea, feeling orally. Speaking skill has several supporting factors. There is pronunciation, intonation, word choice, word structure, sentence, and systematic when speaking, and then content, and also delivery method. So good speaking skill will provide social and professional benefit. So therefore, speaking skill is very important to be developed. So this research will focus on the effect of flipped classroom on student speaking skills. And the next is theory of flipped classroom. So in simple term, the flipped classroom can be interpreted as flipping the classroom model. It includes a transfer of place of study with homework. The activity is carried out through technological tools and place a student at the core of the learning process with teaching techniques that tend to be interactive and collaborative. So we can interpret the flipped classroom as the implementation of mixed learning process in which students are shown the content at home and then the student practice doing it at school. So in this case, we can see opposite, which is generally the practice of introduction new content at school, then giving homework. And in the flipped classroom, in general, practice is reverse. This flipped classroom model is similar to hybrid learning because it's carried out directly in the classroom and outside the classroom using the certain media, application, or technology. Okay, next we will move to empirical review. So several studies have been conducted to find the influence of flipped classroom model in the English learning. So focus on speaking skill in English learning. There is Tran Tan Quen and Nguyen Van Loy specially conduct a study to determine the effect of implementing flipped classroom model on e-eval student to see is the effect on student speaking skill. So the research results that the teacher had a positive effect on the use of flipped classroom model, and student speaking ability experience a number of improvement. It can be concluded that this research has proven that the use of flipped classroom can increase student motivation in practicing speaking skill. The result of this research are further strengthened by the results of research by Iman Sudarmaji, Ariska Ananda Amelia Anwar, and also August Mulyan that show that the use of the flipped classroom show a positive response. And then talking about some previous research, there are several studies that examine the same topic, description of the research with a similar topic regarding the effect of implementing flipped classroom on student speaking skill. ABD Rahman and Ibnu Hajar conduct a research with focus on examines whether the use of flipped classroom model could improve student speaking ability and increase student engagement or not. The research of this research show that the use of flipped classroom method was not only improving student speaking ability but also enhancing student engagement in the teaching of speaking, and then focus on determining the implementation of the flipped classroom model as an alternative way to grow students' speaking skill. Julian Fazri Nur Yusuf conduct a research successfully show that the flipped classroom model is an effective model for improving student speaking skill. Okay, it's very important if the study look more deeply about teacher perception because the teacher will accompany student in the learning process and monitor their progress. So this research have an implicator. It is very important if the studies look more deeply about teacher perception because teacher will accompany student in the learning process and monitor their progress. So there is no research that show how teacher perception about the influence of the flipped classroom model on student speaking skill, especially in SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. Okay, now we move to chapter 3. There is research methodology. This section will discuss more anything related to the research methodology, for example, research design, research setting, subject, population and sample, and also research objective, variable, method of data collection, how the instrument of data collection are, and method data analysis. But the first is research design. This research is research with quantitative approach, because it starts with a data collection, interpretation, and appearance of the results using numbers. This research belongs to quantitative research and focus on more quantitative descriptive research. So the research objective based on the description above to identifying the teacher perception of the influence of using flipped classroom model on student speaking skill in English learning for 12th grade student at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. And then the research setting. Research on the perception of English teachers was conducted at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar, especially for English teacher who teach speaking skill using the flipped classroom model. So this research will be conducted in SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar, located at Ratna Street, Tegal Tugu, Gianyar District, Gianyar Regency, Bali. So the choice of this location is because SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar is a high school that has used the flipped classroom model, especially in English subject in the teaching skill for 12th grade student. Okay, for next is population and sample. So the population of this study is English teacher who teach speaking skill to grade 12 student using a flipped classroom model at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar. So from the description of the population, a research sample will be available. So the sample is part of totally of research subject. So the sample can also interpret as a part of population or example that represent or being the representative population characteristic. So the sample in this study has total 62 teacher at SMA Negeri 1 Gianyar, but only about 6 English teacher will be involved in this study. And the fourth one is variable. So descriptive quantitative research is carried out to determine the value of independent variable. It can be one or more independent without any comparison or linking with other variable. So this study used a descriptive quantitative approach. So this approach is related to research variable that focus on current problem, namely regarding the teacher perception on the use of flipped classroom on teaching speaking skills, and from research results in the form of number that have meaning as the research result. Okay, for the next is about the data collection. So in the data collection, several methods and instruments of data collection will be used, which can for the next is data collection. So in data collection, several methods and instruments of data collection will be used. Okay, I will elaborate the data collection method first. So this study will use one method, that is survey method, namely questionnaire. So questionnaire were conducted to obtain valid answer and authentic evidence. So the answer obtained from participant came from multiple choice question on Likert scale. It's used in assessment, which refers to how much the respondent or participant agree or disagree with the given statement. The questionnaire will be conducted on the Google Form platform with a scale ranging from strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. And about the instrument of data collection, to find out the data, the instrument that will be used to collect the data is questionnaire statement. So the questionnaire will investigate teacher perception on the influence of using flipped classroom model on teaching speaking skills in English, which will focus on 4 dimensions. There is effectiveness, usability, strength, and weakness. So the questionnaire will be conducted in the teacher's room with 6 English teacher using the flipped classroom model in teaching speaking. So the number of the sample of this study is 6 English teacher. So the processing time is set at 20 minutes for excludes question. There is multiple choice question on Likert scale in the form of statement. The scale used is strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. Okay, for the last is data analysis technique. So the data analysis technique that will be applied in this research is by collecting data through the instrument of data collection. So the data analyzed is quantitative data that has been extracted from the questionnaire that have been filled by the English teacher using the flipped classroom model in teaching speaking. Then the data is analyzed using frequency analysis in SPSS because this study is research with quantitative descriptive approach. All right. As you can see on the slide, the next is about the research schedule. For the research schedule, as you can see on the slide, I doing this research start from June and finish at November. This activity start from preparation and testing proposal until the thesis submission in November. So totally, I will spend 6 months for all this project. All right, that's all about my research proposal. I do apologize if there's any error or many mispronounced word. I'm Anggita Kinanti. Thank you for your attention. Om Santi 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 Om.